Welcome to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton, and welcome to a show where we are going to be debating whether we should sign one of our transfer targets, and in this case, it's going to be Kelechi Iheanacho, obviously recently been relegated with Leicester. Me, myself, and Ellis Nordoff. Welcome to the show, Ellis. Sure you'll be seeing a lot more of Ellis around on the Toffee Blues now. You've been about for quite very recently. You've been quite a regular on the channel, haven't you?
Yeah, I've done a few videos now, enjoying it. So yeah,
So no doubt we'll be seeing a lot more of you with us on the channel and your insights, which I'll be honest, like you can't be less informed than me at the moment. I've been doing my level best to hide away from all things Everton for the past 2 months since the season concluded, and on a couple of holidays, and just it has really helped me recharge my batteries. I'll be honest, because it is I was so mentally drained when the season finished. It'd be nice to see some things that could bring a bit of optimism. Question is Kelechi Iheanacho going to be one of them? Would he be a good addition to the team? There's plenty of evidence either side. What's your take on it?
it's an interesting one, I think, because obviously being relegated with Leicester, a lot of fans will instantly jump to that and say, "Oh, we don't want to sign a relegated player." But I think if you look a bit further into it, he could be quite a good signing for us. I've liked him since he played for Man City when he was wearing the number 72 shirt and when he was coming on as a sub as a kid. And I think he's probably not blossomed into the player that people expected him to at the time, but I still think he is a good player, and I do think he offers quite a lot in the link up as well as a striker itself. But I have a few doubts. What about you?
Yeah, I'm not 100%. I think the fact that he's been relegated isn't what concerns me. It's more the fact that he was injured a lot and he was unable to contribute to Leicester's survival bid. Basically, I think that's where the concern is. I think with him is his injury record in recent years. Is that if he had been fit, then he might have kept Leicester up. But we could be asking the same question ourselves next year. If he had been fit, he might have kept us up, but he hasn't. It's
Yeah,
the same.
that's the worry, isn't it? Like you don't want another striker who's a bit injury prone.
That's the thing. That's exactly the issue we're having with Dominic Calvert-Lewin. So do we need another one of those? And the other thing with Iheanacho is he's not going to lead the line on his own. So does that suggest that Deitch is going to revert to his more regular 4-4-2? I know it's like Iheanacho is a bit more like might drop a little bit. It could be a 4-4-1-1 maybe, but it's definitely looking more like an out and out strike pairing maybe rather
Yeah,
than
that'd be
four
interesting, wouldn't it? Because
three. We've seen a lot
we're
of
not
4-3-3s, 4-5-1s recently, haven't we?
Yeah, we're not used to the 4-4-2 because we've not had it for a while. But of course, we know that Sean Dyche likes to play that with Ashley Barnes, Jay Rodriguez, them kind of players. I think he likes to have quite a good amount of strikers as well. So I'm hoping this isn't the only striker signing. But yeah, he does thrive in a two. We know that he likes to come in deep and like link the play up basically. And one thing that worries me a little bit is his finish, and he does miss quite a lot of chances. But I do think he offers a lot in the general play. So if Dom is fit, which we don't know whether he will be, he could be a really good pairing for him. But I've got concerns about whether he can lead the line or not on his own. He's done it a few times for Leicester, but for me, if he comes in, I'd be looking for another striker to come in as well, because if Dom gets injured, you've got left then is Iheanacho, who is pretty injury prone himself.
It'd be like having a more technically gifted Mope leaving the line, which is better than
Yeah,
Mope, but still we've seen how much he struggles to hold his own physically up top on his bill. It's
yeah,
not
exactly.
really gonna put the mustard in the Premier League. I do rate him. I think he's technically good, and he is a better finisher than anyone we've already got at Everton. No doubt about that in my mind.
Like
Um,
he gets a lot of shots off. I think like he averages three a game normally, and of course we need players to take shots because
ours
that's
don't.
our biggest issue, isn't it? Ours don't, and we don't score goals. You think scored 34 goals last season, didn't we? So we need players who are going to be brave, going to take shots. And I think the good thing about him is because he's got that movement and the intelligence, I think he might be able to create a few more of his own chances, which is useful when there's not a load of creativity around the team.
Well, that's the thing. I think we have to really work on. I think they can see that we're going after. Obviously, he's one of the linked players, but a lot of others are like wingers as well. We are aiming to add more creativity to the team, because that was a real, like, obviously Calvert-Lewin being injured never helped, but we weren't really providing adequate service, to be honest, to whoever we did have up there. Like,
Yeah, we need players who can help out, don't we? As well, we need goals all around the pitch. I think. I imagine the remit for the transfer window will be goals, whether that's on the wing or up front.
yeah, it's got to be. I think that's a very good point you've made there. Is that our wingers don't score enough. McNeil was contributing with a few last season, but apart from him, we weren't really seeing enough goals being scored by any midfielders. To be honest with you, got a couple of goals from defenders from set pieces, but the midfield in particular weren't contributing enough. Or they got a few towards the end of the season, obviously on the final day as well. But that side, Anana only scored once. I don't think Idrissa Gueye scored at all. Um, James Garner's still yet to score. Who else have we gone? Obviously, a few players have left, like Davis and whatnot. But
It just
uh,
shows, really, doesn't it? We should be able to think of 3 or 4 players who've hit at least 6, 7 goals. Even if the midfielder's just chipping in with a few, you'd hope for a bit more and hopefully bring in attackers in will do that. And if we brought Iheanacho in, I'd be looking at 8 to 10 goals from him. People will say, yeah, he hasn't done that regularly for Leicester, but I think there's something to look at there because a lot of his appearances as a substitute and his minutes per goal is actually quite good. Last season, there's 224 minutes per goal. So when you look at that, that's more like a goal every 2.5 games rather than saying he's appeared 20 odd times and scored 5 goals, which looks a lot worse.
yeah, I think he does offer something that what we currently have can't offer. And I think that's probably where the thinking is. But it should be one in, one out. I think Iheanacho should be coming in at the expense of Mope. I think he's a similar build to Mope. I think he'd be being brought in to do what we wanted Mope to do, but he wasn't capable of doing.
Yeah, I do think that'll be the case. And
So
obviously he's better with his head as well and stuff. And, he's a bit more of a stronger player than Mope.
absolutely, I think the purpose of Mope was supposed to be that he's a striker who can also possibly drop deeper, play wide, and Mope's offered none of that, even though that was what the purpose of him supposedly being signed was. So if we can get Mope out the door and bring him in, that's basically the similar role, but with a massive upgrade in quality.
Yeah, I don't think it will be a bad price either. I imagine you're looking at around 10 million maybe for him
Yeah,
and
so someone's saying
put
like
price in it.
9 or 10 million. That's, you consider that Leicester paid 25 million to Manchester City to sign him in 2017. He was only like 20 then. And that's the other good point about Iheanacho. It's not like we're signing a really old player. He's still only 26. So he's still got a lot of his career in front of him. Um, so yeah, I do think there's a lot of like good reasoning behind it, but we'd have to try and get the price down because he can't be the only striker we bring, and we need to make sure we save up some funds for another striker, whether it's a loan fee or something. We need an extra striker. Obviously, it's expected that Danjuma's going to come in. Um, Again, I think he might bring a few more goal contributions, whether it be goals or assists, than previous players have. I think he's got a better end product than Damari Gray, for instance. Do I think he's another one who really hasn't contributed enough in terms of output? Um, so Iheanacho definitely offers something, but he offers something as part of a collective. I think he's a good signing in a certain context. If he was coming in to be a backup or even a second supporting striker in a team that was already quite strong, I think that'd be a good move because we haven't got a lot of resources. And we need a big striker to lead the line in Calvert-Lewin's absence. We need another winger, even on top of Danjuma, it could be Nonto, it could be somebody else. We need more midfielders to chip in with goals, who can chip in with goals. That's where the risk lies with us at the moment because there's so little in the way of money and resources. We've got to be careful with every single signing we make. Whereas Iheanacho for 8 million a couple of years ago, when we had money to spend, would be a pretty low risk signing to fill the subs bench or to play as play as a second striker in a 4-4-2. it's not as easy at the moment. That's where the problem is that how much money have we really got to spend, and can we afford to spend 9 or 10 million of it on Iheanacho when there's so many other areas that need plugging as well? And like, are there other strikers out there with a better profile for our team who could deliver the same goals output with a better injury record and probably cost less as well?
Yeah, I think you're right about the context. You need to look at it from, I think after the window, if Iheanacho's came in as well as another striker, you look at it as a good signing, really. If you're not banking on his fitness and banking on him to do what we've seen he can do in flashes over a whole season. I think if he was the only striker to come in, then I would be worried. But I think it would be a good signing. You're right about the injuries. It's definitely an issue, but he's probably worth probably 10 to 15 million, and we might be able to get him for 10, but I imagine it will be a lower down payment. We couldn't just pay 10 million up front now. I don't think we've got them funds available, and I'm not sure it would be the best idea to do that. So if the
Absolutely not.
structure of the deal doesn't match, then you have to just walk away, don't you? That's kind of the situation we're in now. If the deal doesn't match us, we don't overpay for him because he's not going to completely transform the side. So he's not worth overpaying for. If it suits us, do it. If it doesn't, then move on, because there's definitely other targets if you look in different regions, perhaps, rather than just England.
That's what it is. I think we need to, as a club, be a bit more. We need to think outside the box a bit better. We need to be a bit more creative in our recruitment. We need to start scouting better. We need to start finding. Someone was making a good point that Wilfred Monto went to Leeds 2 years ago from Zurich. Why weren't we looking at him when he was at Zurich and signing him for 4 or 5 million instead of paying 20 million to Leeds for him?
Well, that's it. You look at it at the time, you want to be getting them players in 2 years before, but instead it seems we seem to come to the players after they've already done a year or two in the Premier League. And we did look at Nonto at Zurich, I think, but I think we didn't decide to pull the trigger. And I think we need to take a few more of them risks, because in reality, the low risks compared to bigger signings that we've made in the past. So if you see a player that's 2 or 3 million and you really do believe he's going to be good, bring him in and sell him in 2 years for 20 million. You've got profit then, haven't you? And that's probably the most sustainable way to run the club.
Absolutely. And I think the problem with we keep signing these players with Premier League experience, and we seem to be insistent upon it, but it immediately puts like triples the price of every player, like immediately. So I don't know why we do it, because it just isn't. It's not something we can afford to do in the position we're in, and it is literally just down to lazy recruitment. It's lazy scouting, and nobody's really putting the hours in to look at players abroad. You don't even need to get a flight to wherever they're playing to watch them. You can probably find no footage if you're resourceful enough. And that's the problem with, as a club, we're not resourceful enough when we recruit players.
I don't think
We're just
the Premier
lazy.
League tax is worth it either, as in
It is
the
not.
amount extra that you pay for a player from the Premier League's normally a bit too inflated. Would you rather have a player who can score 6 Premier League goals, or a player who might be able to score 15 Premier League goals, and then you probably pay more for the Premier League one?
I think the thing is, even if you sign a young player and he doesn't have a great season, we've had players who we've signed and still turned profits on who weren't very good for us because they were young and still developed to some extent here. Good example of this is Adam Lookman. I think we signed him for like 10 million from Charlton Athletic. He didn't pull any trees up for us, but there was enough there for Leipzig to want to pay 15 for him 2 years later.
Yeah, and then you make the money, don't you? That's the best model to go with. Like
Yeah,
they don't always have to do well, but the good thing is with young players, you have resale value. I look at Nonto. If we brought him in £20 million, it's unlikely you're going to lose that, even if he doesn't do brilliantly for you.
perhaps, but also I'm not 100% sure. Like you say, if we were the ones buying him for like 5, 6 million 2 years ago, then we're absolutely laughing. You're almost guaranteed the profit there. We've got to start being smarter and signing these players from these lesser leagues, and pretty much giving us a license to print money.
Yeah, there's definitely got to be an element of caution though in this window. We do need some players who are proven, and I think that's why Iheanacho might be a good signing for us
Oh yeah,
because
right.
we
Like I
know
say,
he's proven in the Prem, don't we?
yeah, at this moment in time, we're talking about like in a perfect world. It's it. Everton world's never a perfect world. Let's be honest. Yeah, on the note with Iheanacho, I think I'd I would have him. Like, if you're asking literally just in any context, should we sign him? Yes, because he's a better finisher than anyone else we've got at the club. Like, just for that alone, we need the goal. So if it is a sort of 10 million or less price, then we absolutely take it.
Yeah, I would as well. I think if you get him for the right price, you take him. And you know, he's got 1 year left on his Leicester deal. They've been relegated, so you're getting him for a cut price fee as well, as long as the structure's right. And I think he offers a lot more than people realize. He's quite underrated, I think, in the Premier League, and he
Mm.
is something that none of our other strikers are at the minute. You know, a player who can link up and he can actually almost do what Decore does at times and offer you as that like behind the striker role as well. He's a very versatile attacker, really, in the way that he plays. And like you say, he's not just the normal striker. Like he said, he's what we wanted Mope to be able to do, being a bit more mobile, creating your own chances a bit more, being able to drop in. And I think that's what he do for us. So for me, I'd definitely have him.
Yeah. But on that note, we'll leave it at that. Anyone who's tuned into this one, of course, let us know what your take is on Kelechi Iheanacho, whether you would sign him or not. Get the comments coming in, let us know. Give this video a like and subscribe for more content as well. Until next time, guys, thanks for tuning in on the Toffee Blues.